This particular short video is going to deal with how do I determine the polynomial functions if I'm actually given the zeros to start with. So we go through, we give you zeros, and you've got to determine what the equation is as a result of those zeros. So first example, determine the equation of the polynomial function with integer coefficients of degree 3 and zeros at x equaling 2 and x equaling 2i. So if I look at the equation here, they're only giving me one here and one here. So I have to know that when I see x equals 2i, that in order to have integer coefficients, I need to have two zeros that are complex. So that means not only do I have x equals 2i, but I have x equals negative 2i as well. Okay, so I get both of them. So now I've got all three, because remember, complex numbers happen in pairs. So I have the complex number and I have its conjugate. So what this means then with going through and setting this up is that I've got x is equal to plus or minus 2i. So if x is equal to plus or minus 2i, so then that gives me two values. So what I need to do is I need to square both sides so that I can come up with what the equation is. So if I square both sides, I get x squared is equal to plus or minus 2i that I'm then going to square, plus or minus 2i. So it doesn't matter if I have the positive value there or if I have the negative value there, because when I square it, I'm going to end up with a 4 and then I squared. So I get x squared is equal to 4i squared. Then we know that I squared is negative 1. So 4 times negative 1, that's then going to give me a value of negative 4. Since these zeros are going to be used and I'm going to multiply the factors to get me the equation, I have to get this into an equation where everybody's on one side and a zero's on the other. So that means I'm going to add 4 to both sides, and I end up with x squared plus 4 is equal to 0. So now I take all the factors. So that means then f of x is going to equal, well, if x equals 2, then that means the factor is x minus 2. And I'm going to multiply that by x squared plus 4. Use a distributive property, basically. Just FOIL this out. Take the x, multiply by everybody that's over here. Take the negative 2, multiply by everybody that's over here. So when I do that, I get x times x squared. That gives me x cubed. X times 4, so plus 4x. Now I've got to take the negative 2. Negative 2 times everybody that's over here, so negative 2 times x squared gives me negative 2x squared. And then I take negative 2 times the positive 4, and that's going to give me negative 8. Add all of your pieces together. Get it so that it's in the proper order. So now I know that f of x is going to equal x cubed minus 2x squared plus 4x minus 8. So determine the equation of the polynomial function with integer coefficients of degree 3. Zeros are at x equals 2, and the other one is at x equals x equals 2i. That means that my third is x equals negative 2i. First thing I do is figure out what's the equation, that the quadratic equation that gives me positive and negative 2i as zeros. That's what this is. Then I take the zeros I know from the real number that is given, and I multiply everything out. And that gives me, in this case, the third degree polynomial equation. All right, so the next one is going to be a lot more complicated because we have more values. All right, so we're going to go through to the same exact thing. I'm going to, over here though, I'm going to take this x plus 3i, 1 plus 3i, and I know this is x equals 1. I know that since it's complex, it comes in a pair, and I know that that pair are complex conjugates, so I'm going to say plus or minus 3i. I don't want to square yet because then I'm still going to have I values. what I need to do is I need to isolate the component that has I by itself on one side. So that means I need to get this plus or minus 3i by itself. In order to do that, I have to get the subtraction of 1 from both sides. So x minus 1, that's an x, minus 1 is equal to plus or minus 3i. I've isolated the I, now I can square it. So I'm going to then take x minus 1 squared, and that's going to equal the plus or minus 3i squared. So you would go through and multiply this out, and when I multiply this out, it's going to end up with x squared minus 2x plus 1. Again, if you have to, take x minus 1 times x minus 1, and you'll see that you get exactly this. Now when I square, whether it's plus or minus, it doesn't matter. It's going to be coming out as a positive, so I get positive then 9i squared. I squared again is negative 1, so this would become negative 9. I need to add it to both sides, so I get x squared minus 2x plus 10 is equal to 0. So this is the quadratic part that comes from this. Now my other 3 zeros, because in this case it says I want a degree 5, so now my other 3 zeros, well, I've got 1/2 with multiplicity 2, so that means then I have 2x minus 1 squared. Then I have 3, so that's going to be x minus 3, that has a multiplicity of 1. And then I have my last one here, x squared minus 2x plus 10. So what I now need to do is I need to multiply all this stuff out. So then when I look here, all right, so I'm going to multiply all this out, and I'm going to end up with 4x squared minus 4x plus 1 that I will then need to multiply by x minus 3. That when I'm done multiplying those two things, I'm going to have to multiply by the x squared minus 2x plus 10. So this is a lot of multiplication. The nice thing is you know how to do the process of multiplication. So therefore, I'm not necessarily going to go through and do all of these pieces right here because you know how to multiply. So you're going to take this and you're going to multiply those two. All right, so then when we go through and do that, so I've got it written down over here. When I go through and I do that, I end up with 4x cubed minus 16x squared plus 13x minus 3, and then I've got to multiply that by the quadratic that I came up with before. Again, how did I get this? Well, on a separate sheet of paper, because I don't have enough room here on the screen, I took this quadratic and I multiplied it by this simple binomial. Okay, and that's how I got that. Okay, so you're going to go through, you're going to multiply the components, you're going to multiply everything that's there, and then get it down to the equation at the end. Next, you're going to go through and you're going to take that 4x cubed, multiply it by everybody in that quadratic. Then you're going to take negative 16x squared, multiply it by everything in the quadratic. Then you're going to take 13x, multiply by everything in the quadratic. Negative 3, multiply by everything. Then you're going to add all those components together. So again, since there's not a lot of room on here and you know how to go through and do your multiplication of polynomials, if I go through now, I'm going to end up with, let's see, f of x. Well, I'm going to rewrite the f of x because this is going to be my final solution here. So I'm going to rewrite the f of x, and then I have 4x to the fifth, which makes sense because this is a fifth degree polynomial equation, minus 24x to the fourth, and then plus 85x minus 189. Why is this not writing? 189x squared plus 136x minus 30. So this is the fifth degree polynomial equation that is created when I have all of these zeros. And again, What did I do to start? Well, the first thing I did was I took the complex number. I know they come in conjugates. I isolated the imaginary part from that imaginary part by subtracting the 1. Square both sides, which then yields the 9i squared on this side. When I square x minus 1 times x minus 1, this is the quadratic I get. Add 9 to both sides, which gives me x squared minus 2x plus 10 equals 0. So now that right here is represented by this quadratic. The 1/2 of multiplicity 2, remember 1/2 would translate into a 2x plus 1, 2x minus 1 as my factor, and then the multiplicity of 2 means I have to have 2 as my exponent. The 3 would mean that translates into a factor of x minus 3. So if I square this first part here, I get the 4x squared minus 4x plus 1. And again, it's because I take 2x minus 1 times 2x minus 1. Then I'm going to multiply these two first terms. Again, take the 4x squared times everybody here, negative 4x times everyone here, 1 times everybody here. Add them all together, and this is the cubic I get. Now I got to multiply that cubic and that quadratic to get a 5th degree polynomial equation. Again, I didn't show all the mathematics, all the arithmetic here because there's just not enough room in this area. Okay, so those are 2 examples step by step. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, everything that we do here is based off of or for the students that are in the Charahoe Regional High School pre-calculus course. OpenStax is who we use for our textbook, and hopefully this was helpful. And if you have any suggestions for us, please go ahead and don't fail to communicate to us. All right, excellent. Have a great rest of your day.